Did you know that Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith actually kind of ruined or possibly even fixed the original Darth Vader helmet? What's up guys, my name is Mike and I'm the Weird Pigeon of Weird Pigeon Productions. And if you're a subscriber of this channel, you know that I love to take a look at different helmets in Star Wars and kind of analyze them and break them down. And today we're going to be talking about Darth Vader's helmet and how, as I said before, Revenge of the Sith in some people's eyes fixed Darth Vader's helmet and in others ruined it. It really depends on how you look at it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about with Vader's helmet is its creation. When creating Star Wars, George Lucas was inspired by a lot of samurai films by the director Akira Kurosawa. And you can really see a lot of that samurai inspiration in Darth Vader's helmet and armor, but you can really see a lot of that inspiration in a lot of the concept art that Ralph McQuarrie did. And Ralph McQuarrie, under the supervision of George Lucas, is really responsible for creating the overall look and feel of Darth Vader's helmet and armor, and so many other pieces of iconic Star Wars. Really, without Ralph McQuarrie and his artwork, we honestly wouldn't have the Star Wars that we have today, and we might not even have Star Wars at all. But honestly, that's a story for a completely different video. The concept artwork and designs for Darth Vader's helmet were then sent over to the costume designer John Molo. I think I'm saying his name right. And you could honestly say that in a lot of ways, John Molo is the one who's responsible for taking that artwork and translating it to the actual physical helmet. He was the one kind of overseeing the costume designing process. But he actually isn't even the one who created the actual helmet. That title really belongs to the production designer Norman Reynolds and Brian Muir. I think, again, I'm saying that last name right. I'm not really sure. But these two are actually responsible for sculpting the actual helmet that we eventually got on screen. They sculpted these helmets out of clay, much like the original Stormtrooper helmet. From those clay designs, they were then molded and cast in fiberglass, which is actually different from the way that the Stormtrooper helmets were made. The Stormtrooper helmets were made from a very cheap vacuum-formed plastic, and that process is actually what gives the Darth Vader helmet a lot of that unique black little shine to it. Some notable features of the A New Hope helmet used in the original Star Wars would be the eyes. The lenses, unlike a lot of the other movies, are red. They have a very slight reddish brown tint to them. And they did this to try to hide David Prowse's eyes. And if you didn't know, David Prowse is the one who's actually in the costume acting on set. When making this helmet, they actually made a cast of David Prowse's entire head and then kind of sculpted the helmet around that. And when David Prowse first put on the helmet, he felt like it was way too big, it was clunky, it was difficult. But the costume designers looked at it and were like, no, this is literally perfect. And they took that helmet and added padding and ways to kind of hold it to David Prowse's head, and that's how we got the Darth Vader helmet. Another really notable thing about the A New Hope helmet is just how wonky and asymmetrical it is. Again, this helmet was sculpted by hand out of clay. It wasn't made by a computer. It's very asymmetrical, it's very wonky, and you can really see that in some shots. After New Hope was a massive success, they set out to create the sequel to the original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. However, when creating the iconic helmet for this movie, they didn't have anything to go off of. All of the original helmets in the United States had been lost or destroyed. Also, all of the original molds for the Darth Vader helmet were lost. So really, they had to start all the way back from scratch. And for Empire Strikes Back, they did something similar to the Stormtrooper helmets, where they didn't just make one helmet, they made 6. And at least one of these helmets was a stunt helmet, which was very different than the regular Darth Vader helmet, but I'll get more into that in just a second. Because of the fact that they had to start from scratch, there are some pretty big differences between the Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader helmet and the one from A New Hope. The cheeks on the Empire Strikes Back helmet are a little less pronounced, and the eyes are a little more rounded. There's softer edges around the mouth, and the overall polish is a little softer. It's not as shiny. Also, there are some adjustments to the samurai-looking portion of the helmet, that top half, where it comes down over the eyes. That peak was kind of replaced with a more straighter, rounded edge. On top of this, the whole upper portion of the helmet was kind of shifted back, giving the actual Vader helmet less of an angry look, in my opinion. Another really notable difference is the actual lenses of the eyes. Instead of that red lens, they went with a black one, and they were able to hide David Prowse's eyes with the black lenses, but still allow him to see through them. And the last notable difference between this helmet and the one from A New Hope is the vent there underneath the chin. The one in A New Hope is really small. This one is much larger, which I'm sure they changed to give David Prowse more of an ability to breathe through the helmet, because in this movie, Darth Vader does a lot more moving around and a lot less standing around like he did in New Hope. And speaking of changes to the helmet based on stunts and action, at least one of the 6 helmets made for this movie was a stunt helmet. And if you don't already know what a stunt helmet is or a stunt prop is, a stunt helmet or prop is something that usually has a lot less detail, but is safer and easier to work with when doing all the fancy stunts and action that the movie requires. For example, the actual lenses on the stunt helmet were pretty much completely see-through, giving David Prowse a lot more visibility when doing the sword fights, duels, and all the action that the movie required. The little tusk protrusions on the sides of the mouth vent were also removed, and I guess they did this to keep those little knobs from catching on different things in the scene, like his cape. Another really cool thing is also the fact that the cheeks of the helmet were transparent, so David Prowse could also see through those as well. The vent in the mouth was also completely see-through, and the chin vent was completely removed. So it was just a big opening there, allowing David Prowse to breathe a lot easier and again giving him way more visibility. Pretty much the entire front half of the helmet was see-through. Now what about the next film, Return of the Jedi? Well, Vader's helmet didn't change too much between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And it's probably because they really nailed down the look that they were wanting to go for in Empire Strikes Back. There is one very small difference between those 2 helmets, and that is in Return of the Jedi, the piece directly, that line directly underneath the mouth vent is a little bit thicker. I'm not exactly sure why they made this change, and I don't think it has anything to do with the removing of Vader's helmet at the end of the movie and the different pieces when it comes apart. But I did still want to make note of that one little change. And now this brings us to the next movie that we see Darth Vader in, and that is Revenge of the Sith. And they made quite a bit of changes to the Vader helmet in Revenge of the Sith. The most notable one would be that they actually made the helmet perfectly symmetrical. In the nearly 20 years between Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, computer technology had advanced quite a bit, and they now were able to make a perfectly symmetrical version of Darth Vader's helmet. And they actually did this by taking the original Empire Strikes Back helmet, digitizing the helmet by taking pictures of it, putting that in a computer, mirroring the actual helmet, and then using that mirrored image to create a perfectly symmetrical Vader helmet. And oddly enough, instead of going with A New Hope version of Vader's helmet, they actually stuck to the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi version of the helmet. So it had that slightly different design with the black lenses. In my honest opinion, I feel like I rather would have liked to see them go with the A New Hope version of the helmet. To me, that would have made more sense chronologically. I guess you could explain it away by saying that Darth Vader probably had multiple helmets for different reasons and purposes, and the ones with the black lenses were just the ones that he preferred to wear the most. Now, what about Disney Star Wars and what Disney has done with the Vader helmet? The next time we see Vader's helmet is in The Force Awakens, but we're not going to really talk about that because it's the crispy version of Vader's helmet. However, a year later they released Rogue One, and in that movie we do get to see the full suit of Darth Vader armor being worn again, and we also get to see Vader in action like never before. But what did they change about the helmet in this movie? Well, funny enough, this helmet has way more similarities to the original trilogy helmet than the one they actually used in Revenge of the Sith. And that is because they went back to the asymmetrical design of Darth Vader's helmet. The costume designers really wanted to capture the look and feel of the original trilogy with Vader's helmet and armor, and unlike what they do with the Stormtrooper helmets, they decided to reincorporate a lot of the imperfections that gave Vader's helmet a lot of character. Because Rogue One literally ends minutes before A New Hope begins, the costume designers recreated the A New Hope helmet. They kept the reddish brown lenses, which you can really see the red in those lenses in the scenes on Mustafar. And they also recreated the smaller chin vent design that we see in A New Hope compared to all the other Darth Vader helmets in all the other movies. And that leads me into the most recent appearance of Darth Vader's helmet in Star Wars live action, and that would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, for this show, they made a different version of Darth Vader's helmet. Instead of using the A New Hope version of Vader's helmet as their sort of template, they went back to the Revenge of the Sith version of the helmet, which is also based off of the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi version. But just like the one from Revenge of the Sith, they made this helmet perfectly symmetrical. They wanted it to look as much like the helmet that we see at the end of Revenge of the Sith, because in a lot of ways Kenobi is just a continuation of that movie, and the story arc of Anakin Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And because they went with the Revenge of the Sith version of the helmet, it again has the dark black lenses and the much larger chin vent. And that, guys, is pretty much the entire history of the Darth Vader helmet throughout all the live action movies and shows. So what do you guys think of all the different changes with Vader's helmet? And do you think that Revenge of the Sith ruined the helmet or completely fixed it? In a lot of fans' eyes, by taking out the asymmetrical wonkiness of the helmet, it really removes a lot of the character, and so some people online have very strong opinions about the helmet used in Revenge of the Sith and think it ruined the helmet. But really, from a technical standpoint, Revenge of the Sith made the helmet completely perfect. In a galaxy and universe that's way more technologically advanced than our own, you'd think that Vader's helmet in universe would be perfectly symmetrical, therefore making the Revenge of the Sith helmet much better. I personally prefer the helmet from Revenge of the Sith. I think that perfectly symmetrical design, although it loses a lot of the character of the original trilogy, I think that fits the universe just a little bit better. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, so comment below and let me know your opinion. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see plenty more like it, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It means a ton to me. I'm literally so close to 1,000 subscribers. And as always, that's it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.